Welcome to another edition of Dishin with Debbie, and it's Mom's Day, y'all, and we're celebrating our mothers with a very special cake with a secret ingredient. I can't wait to tell you all about it. So what we're making today is a carrot cake, but it's not just any regular carrot cake. Oh no. This is a baby food carrot cake. What a better way to celebrate moms. And I'll tell you as I mix up these dry ingredients where this recipe came from. First, for the dry ingredients, this is just 2 cups of flour, and just really lightly put that into your measuring cup. You don't want it too dense. Then the spices. This is a teaspoon of cinnamon we're going to put in here. And this is a teaspoon of baking soda, and then a teaspoon of salt. And as I mix those up, I am reminded of where this came from. My late brother-in-law's mom made this apparently every year for his birthday, and he just absolutely loved it. So that side of the family passed it along to us, and it became a tradition for my son. He liked it so much because he loved carrot cake, but he didn't like the chunkiness of the vegetables in there. You know, who wants carrots in a cake as a child? You probably don't. So this is a good way to get that moisture in and get the flavor that you love from the carrot cake, but you're doing it with baby food. So we have carrot baby food that we're going to put in there. We'll get to that with the wet ingredients in just a minute because there's some other things that go in there as well that make it extra yummy. So I'll keep on mixing this and we'll continue. So next comes the wet ingredients. I've already cracked 3 room temperature eggs into my bowl. This is just a 1.25 cups of vegetable oil going in, and 2 cups of sugar. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's very decadent, and we don't do this very often. This is a celebratory occasion, so we'll just start to mix this and get the eggs all mixed up. So we've done our eggs, oil, and sugar that we've mixed until it's fluffy, just a couple of minutes. And then we're going to add in the dry ingredients. This is our 2 cups of flour with the salt, baking soda, and the cinnamon. So just a little at a time, we'll add that in, and it would help if I turn on my mixer. Then we mix that up a little bit. We don't want to overmix. We don't want any kind of tough cake. That can happen sometimes if you mix flour too long. So just beware of that. And then I'll go ahead and slowly do this in about 3 additions until I get it all mixed in. So do the 3rd one, and we'll continue mixing that just until it's combined. So next comes the fun ingredients. This recipe calls for baby food in the way of apricots and apples or applesauce and carrots, most importantly. I have found over the years it is very difficult to find apricots. So you can either just double up on the applesauce, or we like to use pears instead. So I think that's what no, that's apple. But anyway, this is the pear. So we've got all 3 ingredients, and we're going to put those in and just fold them in. The other thing I have found lately, I guess this is a new parent thing, there's not as big a selection of baby food in the stores as there used to be. I think parents are kind of veering away from the baby food. We were raised on Gerber. I don't know what's happened, but nobody's doing that anymore. So if you have trouble finding it, just look a little bit. You'll eventually find a store that still stocks it. We've got our go-tos that we like. So put all 3 of these in there. These are just small jars. I don't have exact measurements on these. I think these are 4-ounce jars, but if it looks like too much, don't put the whole jar in. If it looks like you need more, you can put the whole thing in. We're just looking for that flavor, and it adds great moisture. This cake is so delicious, and we top it with that traditional cream cheese frosting that everybody loves on a traditional carrot cake. So get this mixed up, and then we'll be ready to pour it into our pans and bake. So I've got this mixture with the baby food all ready to go into our pans. I have prepared them ahead of time, greased and floured. I've even put a circle of parchment paper in there. I want to be sure these aren't coming out without sticking. Now, it looks like I have a lot of that. It's been a long time since I made this cake. I couldn't remember if it was 3 layers or 2. If it turns out we need a 3rd, I'll grab a 3rd pan. So it also depends on the size of your diameter of your pan, but we'll work it out. None of it's going to waste. And I got to thinking, we're doing this for Mom, but this would also be a great thing for like a baby shower. You could make this for anything, and you could turn it into cupcakes. It doesn't have to be a layer cake if you want to do that, more of an individual serving for a party. So you can really just make this your own and do it any way you want. And we always decorated it up for a birthday, but I gotta tell you, decorating is not my strong suit. It never has been. I love the baking, but I'm not so crazy about decorating. So I do not get fancy with that. Naked cakes were the best thing that ever happened to me, because if there's spots of bare cake and not frosting, it was trendy. Nobody cared. But with this, we do not have nut allergies in our family, so I'm almost thinking I'm just going to do a sprinkle of pecans or walnuts just to kind of keep it simple. It looks like this is fitting in two. So just make sure they're even, and then we'll get this in the oven. I think it cooks about 30 minutes. We'll just check on it and make sure a toothpick in the center comes out clean, then we'll let it cool and frost. Now for the best part, the frosting. This is cream cheese frosting. If you have a favorite recipe, go ahead and use that. Or I'm not going to tell anybody if you cheat and buy it from the can. Doesn't matter. Do what you do. This is 1 8-ounce package of softened cream cheese that we just dump in, a stick of unsalted softened butter, and we're going to just fluff that up before we add in the sugar and the vanilla. So it just took a couple of minutes to beat this cream cheese and butter up until it's nice and fluffy. And trust me, you want to take that extra step of letting them sit at room temperature for a little more than an hour, or use your microwave to soften. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting them in the bowl. If they're soft, they whip up no problem, easy breezy. So it calls for a box of powdered sugar. I think that's interpreted to be about a pound, but we had a 2-pound bag, so I cut it in half. And you know how frosting is. You add more liquid or you add more sugar as it goes, and you see what the consistency is. So we'll just put that in. And then we have a teaspoon of vanilla. You can get clear vanilla if you want to be fancy, so it doesn't taint the color of your frosting, but otherwise just use what you have in your pantry, which is what we did. We're going to mix that up and see where we are. So the cake layers are completely cooled, and I've already started frosting. If you like a really thick frosting, or if you're going to do any embellishments or any kind of designs, you might want to make 1.5 times the amount of frosting, even double the recipe, so you'll have enough. But we're just doing a thin layer. We don't want to overdo it on the frosting. And as it turns out, and I love this little wheel here, if you're going to do a lot of decorating cakes, it really comes in handy. But as it turns out, I could have probably done 3 layers in these small pans. It was enough batter. They were pretty full, so it took a little longer for them to cook. It was closer to 45 minutes to an hour for them to cook in the center. But if you want to do 2 layers, I would probably make the pan a little bit larger. This was a pretty small pan, but regardless, it's going to taste great. So I'm going to continue frosting this, plop on the second layer, and get it all done so we can dig in. All right, this is definitely one of those bare cakes I was talking about, where some of the sides of the cake come through, but you know, we love that. We don't want to have too much frosting. Yeah, we did that on purpose. And I'm just sprinkling some pecans. You could do any kind of decoration on it. You could get fancy and do some edible flowers. You could do fruit. You could do just about anything, little candy bars, whatever mom's favorite is. Stick some Heath bars in there. That might be fun. But anyway, we just sprinkle with some nuts just to be simple about it. So this is our famous baby food cake. Mom's gonna love it. Everybody's gonna love it. Happy Mother's Day.